All right, we're live with the first Parawing question session. I've been getting a lot of questions online about a bunch of stuff that I think is just easier to send to you guys, you know, in a video form that you can just refer to later. So I've been posting some cool. So I'm going to be going back and forth because I need to check these questions in the Parawing group. So the first question I got was how to avoid tangles when stowing. Now, this is a big topic because there's no right answer, and I think I haven't come up with, you know, 100% stowing formula yet that will allow me to stow the Parawing and not get any tangles. But in saying that, I think the easiest way to stow and think about stowing is once you depower the wing and you have the, you know, canopy in one hand and bar in the other hand, first thing you want to do is put that under your armpit, and then you're going to have some line, right? With that line, it's important to just do an overlay on top of the wing and grab that with your hand. And then what I do is I go towards the back of the Parawing, get the canopy, and then I hold those lines from the back. And then that frees my other hand to start tucking everything in. So once you have that little pocket, you want to tuck the rest of the Parawing into that, okay? And that will help as much as possible for all the lines to be in that little pocket. So then once you have that, you can start stowing it either in a belt or in a vest or wherever you want it. And that's possibly the best way I found so far to do the stowing. I'm going to do a proper video on this because there's various ways to stow, and even when you depower, what do you grab? Rear lines, just the front lines? What happens, right? So there's a lot to it, but that's a great question. So just try to follow that formula. Grab the lines, tuck the lines in, grab the canopy from behind, hold the lines through the canopy. So then you have that core, right? That nucleus, and then you just want to tuck everything into that. I'm going to just go and have a look at another question. Cool. Next question is tips, how to survive high winds. So this was a question that, look, it's a tough one because the Parawing has such a small wind range, and the wind range, it's honestly, it's going to perform well within 5 knots. That's the wind range. It's small, right? Anything, you know, 5 knots plus or under that range, it's going to be hard to use that size for that wind. So there's two things actually. There's one thing to note about the Parawing is the bar and the middle point of where your middle lines are. So this is the top and this is the bottom. So if I were to bring this connection towards the back, that will essentially allow the wing to depower a little bit more. So if I bring this connection point down here, the wing will depower as much as it can, right? But you're gonna be losing a little bit of the performance there. But at that point, you know, if you're overpowered on the wing and you're really struggling, try that. The other thing that you can try is to fly the Parawing more towards like zenith, right? Towards that 12 o'clock range. So if you know something about kiting, if the wind, if the kite's right on top of your head at 12 o'clock, that's the neutral zone. So with the Parawing, it'll still pull you, but it'll pull you less than if it's right in front of you, right? So if I'm overpowered, I tend to ride with the Parawing hovering a little bit more rather than down in front of my, like straight downwind from the wind. But what you have to be careful in those situations is if you are riding with the Parawing up high, it'll pull you up. And if you're riding in waves and going through waves, that can shoot you off your board, right? So in really extreme high winds, it's really hard to stay upwind. If I am overpowered, that's when I'm either coming in to change. And nowadays, if I'm doing a session, if I'm going out and I'm not doing a downwind drive, I just want to go upwind and downwind, I always have a second Parawing with me, always. So if I'm doing tack up and, you know, small runs, I don't necessarily stow the wing fully in the belt. I just hold it. It's just quicker. I get better relaunches. Once you fully stow in the belt, the chances of relaunching it properly are a little bit smaller. So I always have a second Parawing with me. So if I'm going out on a 4 and I know that, you know, it's a sea breeze and it might continue to build, I have a 3 meter with me. But yeah, look, to answer the question, try playing with this. Bring this connection point down if you're super overpowered and see if that helps. It'll help a little bit. It's not going to give you that much. And then the Parawing position when you're riding. Those are 2 really good tips for riding overpowered. Let's just check everyone's joining in. That's awesome. Let's try to look for another question. All right, next question is downwind board versus mid-length board. Now, if you're starting out and you only have one board, that's the board you have. I would always try to use, and when I started, I used my biggest board and I used my biggest foil, everything big, right? I just want to get up. If you're not getting up, you're not practicing the sport, you're not learning, you're not going to progress and then be able to downscale board size and foil size and so forth. So I started on an 8-2, which is this board here. This is my downwind board, the one I use for paddling. A2 by 19 wide and 115 liters. So I started on that, and I still use this board if it's around 10 to like 15 knots and I'm on a big Parawing. I'll still use this board and it's still fun. When it's light wind, I like to try, you know, tacks and different kind of technical, like just maneuvers with the Parawing. So when it is 20 knots and it's pumping, I'm comfortable with my tacks. And I can start throwing them, right? So that's what I use light winds for. If you have a mid-length board, can you start on it? Sure. It's going to be a little bit hard initially. It's just a small board. Look, it's in any sport. I think if you can go and, you know, get a downwind board from a mate or a kite shop or something like that, it will help you so much, because those first 3 sessions, there's a lot to deal with. So the last thing you want to do is deal with a small board that you can't balance on properly. So I would start on a downwind board. If you don't have access to a downwind board and you only have a mid-length or something like that, get one from a mate. I'm sure you will be able to find one, a demo from a shop or something like that, and use it for 3 sessions. Those first 3 sessions, just to get it out of the way. Those are the most annoying sessions, when you're just spending time, you know, untangling, learning how to handle the Parawing in the water, and those things take a little bit of time. Ultimately, the mid-length board will be a better board, and my mid-length is a 1-to-1 weight to volume ratio. So I'm 82 kilos more or less, fully geared. I'm putting 85 kilos in there. And I have a Amos Sultan Wing. It's a 510 by 18 by 85 liters. And that board's really good. So I would try those things. Start with the downwind board, biggest foil, and then progress to something that's a little bit smaller. 1-to-weight volume to weight ratio is awesome. And then if you get really good and you have really good conditions, 20 knots plus, is when you're going to be able to start getting into maybe a sinker or something like that. Dave West is struggling. You're struggling just because you don't have any wind, brother. You need some wind. But hats off to Dave. He did this awesome video. You guys should check it online. He's just frothing on it right now, and he needed to get out, so he did a dock start to Parawing, which I think is the first. This is the first time I saw it. So yeah, keep going, mate. We just need some wind. And once you have some wind, you'll be fine. Let's see the next question. All right, cool. This is a cool one. So someone asking in the Parawing group in the Facebook, they have no kiting experience. They don't know anything about kiting or flying a kite. What are some good land drills to do for you to gain that kite control? So I love this question, because I've seen a bunch of people just hold the Parawing for the first time, right? I've seen wingers, I've seen people who surf foil really well, and then you put that thing in the hand of a kiter, and in 3 seconds, I'm not joking, they will understand how that thing flies. And wingers and people who don't have that kiting experience, hey buddy, they tend to take a little bit longer to get that. So here's something you guys can do on land. So just remembering that red lines are your front lines, top lines, and the yellow lines are your brake lines or rear lines. So when you get your Parawing, the working range of the bar is only here to here, okay? The bottom half of the bar, you're gonna use that to depower, okay? So once you, and you can try this on land, so once you get your Parawing and you wanna fly it, go to the top of the bar, hold the top of the bar and get it up, all right? If you wanna use two hands, that's where you put your second hand. You don't put your second hand there, okay? This is how you ride. Now, some things that you can do to gain that kite control are to understand front line and rear line or brake line, okay? And this comes from paragliding. So what happens if you just hold the front lines, right? The Parawing will shoot up, and that is the point where the Parawing has the least amount of energy in it. If you start putting pressure on your rear lines, and you do that with some control, don't just let go, you'll notice that the Parawing will come down, and you're hitting the brakes, right? So the Parawing is coming down. So I would start by just understanding that. Do some drills where you have the Parawing at 12, and then you bring it down, and you bring it back up, and you bring it down, and you bring it back up. Do that for a little bit, and do it with consistency where when you bring it up, it doesn't fly over your head or doesn't stall or collapse. Every Parawing has a different flying characteristics, and not all Parawings you can just hold the front lines. So you might have to keep a little bit of pressure on the rear. That's number one. And this is important when you're gonna start jibing, okay? When you're gonna jibe, what I do is I bring the wing down and then I twist. To either way that I'm gonna do, because that's where the power is. If you leave it on top of your head and you start doing a turn, it's gonna fall on top of your head, because it's right there. You get slack on the lines and you're running into it, right? So you want to bring it down, you want it to have pressure, and then you want it to turn into it, so you always have that bar at the right point, the Parawing at the right point, and then you can maneuver it. The second thing you can do is do little figure eights. So once you understand how to keep the kite Parawing from 12 to, let's say, 3 or 8 o'clock, you want to, 9 o'clock, either way, you want to start doing turns, little S turns. So the way you do that is you're going to have to apply some pressure on the rear, your brake lines, and you're going to twist it. So you're not going to turn it this way. You're going to pull and you're going to twist the bar in either directions, and you're going to do these figure eights. That's the second drill you can do. And those are helpful for your jibes and things like that. But just get comfortable with that, you know, how much energy you get from it, and just get comfortable with that. And then I think the last one, you know, these are simple drills. It's just really bringing the Parawing up and then bringing it down on your side, and then bringing it down on the other side, and simulating riding, you know, so you can walk on land and just simulate riding. You can try to turn and see what happens when you turn. Be sure that when you turn, you go downwind. So you walk downwind to simulate what, you know, you're going to be doing on land. So those are a few things you could do with basic drills on land to understand the Parawing. Those will help you in the future when you're doing turns and all those things. Let's have a look at the last question here before we go. All right. Question about how do you get up in light wind? And this question is a tough one, because the worst thing for the Parawing is light wind. It doesn't perform well in light wind. And if you get a bigger Parawing, it's still hard because there's not enough energy going through it. So getting up in light winds, I'm never trying to, you know, downscale my equipment that much these days. I really try to match my foil size to the conditions that I'm riding at. So if I'm riding in 12 knots, I'm not going to put anything under 1,000 square meters, because it's too fast. Even if there is a bump to catch, that bump will be riding so slow, and it's going to be so short period that it's not even doesn't make sense. You're just going to be pumping. So in light wind, obviously choose your biggest gear. If you have different boards, get your biggest board. If you have different foils, but get your biggest foil, your biggest tail, slow it down. And for me, I I really have to be super patient when I'm doing when I'm parawinging in low wind. So for me, it's literally feeling the pressure on the bar to the point where I know that that pressure is enough to get up. So I'm on my knees for a lot of the time in low wind, and I have one knee up and the other knee down. So I'm kind of just ready to go on my board. And as soon as I feel a gust, you have to be not lucky, but you have to be opportunist in light winds. So you have to be very alert. I actually look back and you can see gusts coming towards you, especially on a low wind day. You can see the surface of the water will get a little bit rougher and glacier in certain bits. If you see that rough patch, that means that there's a gust coming through. So I'm always looking for those, and if I can see that something coming, then I can even get up, and then I'll wait for it to hit. Once it hits me, let's say the wind's coming from my back, right? And I'm riding with the board 90 degrees to the wind. I'll start to slowly point at 45-degree downwind. That's where you want to get some speed. And as the gust hits you, you will notice that the board will do this. It will point downwind, and that's your chance. From here to here, you know that it's moving because energy is hitting you. So that's when I start pumping, and the cadence of pumping is from a slow cadence to a faster cadence. So you start slow and you start, with a low frequency, and then that frequency goes bigger and bigger and bigger, and then you engage the foil and you're riding. That's how you do a progressive pump. So when that board starts to go downwind, that's when you have some energy. Start your little pumps and start moving back to that 45-degree angle, because you want to harness that energy. If you just go downwind, that energy is going to dissipate. So it's a very short moment that you have to actually get up. Once you see the board going downwind, cool, small cadence, very high frequency, and then you start going 45-degree, and hopefully by then you have a bigger porpoisey pump and you're already getting a little bit of flight and getting unstuck out of the water. Once you're unstuck out of the water, you pump your way into it, and that's where pumping techniques come into it. Like if you're a really good pumper, like Dave West just doing dog starts and getting the parawing up, that kind of thing will help you really so much when you're doing a forced parawing start. So look, I'm going to be doing this every week. I think there's a lot of questions now that it's just easier to answer as a video because they're recurring questions. So if you have anything that you want me to cover, just shoot me a DM, write the question. I'll try to answer as many as I can. Right now I'm just taking my dog for a walk, so I'll do that now. But otherwise, where's Reefy? Reefy! You can't even see him, he's in there. But for now, thanks for all the questions that are coming through. Everybody's been frothing on this. A lot of pro riders also getting in touch and wanting to understand what this is all about. So it's going to be a cool year for parawinging. And if you have any questions, like I said, DM it, and I'll try to answer them once a week. We'll get together. Cheers.